Continue our coverage on tributes for the legendary photographer Dr. Peter Magubane, who passed away yesterday at the age of 92. The renowned photographer was one of the photographers in the forefront of capturing the plight of South Africa during the apartheid era, including the 1976 June 16 unrest. We're joined now by Youth League spokesperson Zama Khanyase to reflect on some of Dr. Magubane's brilliant work. Zama, a very good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having the ANC Youth League today, even though it's under these circumstances.
Indeed. But if you look at the contribution that Dr. Magubane, his contribution to society over the years, I would believe that it's something that we need to celebrate and honor. And what is your view from the ANC Youth League's perspective about his contribution to society and particularly the struggle in South Africa?
Well, there are so many notable instances that we can quote. Well, particularly as young people, we remember how he selflessly captured the Soweto uprising, which was one of the pivotal turning points of history, especially pertaining to the involvement of young people in the struggle. So we are deeply moved by his passing, but obviously also celebrating his life, because I believe that he has done it all. I think everything that he had come to this earth to do, he has done it, and it is time for us to celebrate his legacy. And I do believe that our government and even all other different players in our society who have the means must keep his name alive, especially when it comes to photography. As times are moving, we can see that photography in its different forms is beginning to become a very pivotal part of our lives. There's business involved. There is activism involved when it comes to photography. And I really do believe that more and more people, particularly young people, need to be given a platform to be able to sharpen their skills and make them professional, because at the end of the day, they also need to earn a living out of it, inspired, of course, by the greats such as Dr. Magubane. So I think in his name, it would be good that we have a photography school, because look at how even funerals and different programs have to be streamed now. All of that is work of a camera. And I think that in honor of his memory, we need to keep these things alive in order to empower young people, in order to continue using photography in a very positive way to raise awareness, to capture important moments, and also to do business as well.
When you look at his contribution, particularly to the struggle, having captured not only the 1976 uprising, I mean, if you read some of his memoirs about those sort of incidents, how he was speaking to young people and saying that, I want to capture this because it will be history. In fact, even goes on to say that the young people in 1976 were refusing their pictures to be taken. What do you think young people can take from his contribution in that regard, as somebody who felt that at that point they need to document some of those incidents?
I think obviously times were different back then. I think already it was a difficult situation already to be part of the struggle. And if there is now evidence of you having had participated, it puts you in an opportunity to further be harassed even beyond the uprising itself. But now that we are in a new South Africa where we fought, and people who came before us, the leadership that came before us, fought for the time that we are in now, where we have freedom of speech, where as long as there is obviously no one who is against it, because there's the Copy Act now and so forth. But if no one is against it, then we need to capture important moments, not just to post on social media for clout, but to educate, to capture history, to be able to go back and reflect and say this is where we come from, and or to even raise an awareness that this is wrong. Here it's captured, it happened, it's wrong. Let's correct it. Let's do better. So I think as times are changing, really we can use more of work that is is the same as the one that was being done by Dr. Magubane, but also now in the current times that we're in.
You know, when we look back normally to issues of the struggle, 1976 and so on, Zama, there's always the notion of comparing the youth then and now. But also if you look at, you know, the contribution that people like Peter Magubane has, you know, contributed to the struggle itself, do you feel that it's, I guess, fair to a certain extent to have those comparisons, but also the key takeaways as to what can young people learn from that period, you know, that was captured by the greats like Peter Magubane?
Well, I think that I'll keep on repeating that the context matters. But I think we must not take away from the bravery of young people today. And a very easy case to quote is the one of the Fees Must Fall movement, which did not obviously start with just Fees Must Fall. You'd remember that every year students would march for free education. And then there was that particular instance where now there's a Fees Must Fall movement. But young people continue to be in the forefront of fighting for transformation of this country, of furthering the development of this country. So I think if you'd want to compare, you'd only be comparing the context, which was that back then you had no right to strike, to march. But now we very much do have a right to that, as long as obviously we have followed the required rules to be able to apply and all of that. But now we do have a right to demonstrate. And I think young people continue to be in the forefront of those issues. Young people continue to raise issues that affect them and that speak about transformation of this country in different platforms, on social media, even on the ground in their communities. You find young people in the forefront of speaking against injustices, but also speaking about how they can actually contribute in transforming this country and wanting to be part of the process. So I really do feel that I don't want to dwell on how unfair it is, but I think that any conscious citizen would be able to appreciate the context, which are different, but appreciating the fact that even now young people are still in the forefront of issues.
And just finally then, Zama, from the ANC Youth League's perspective and from young people's perspective, what key takeaway should we take then as young people from the contributions and the life of Dr. Peter Magubane?
Well, I think he gave his life for the liberation of this country. If you go through his history, you'll see how he was detained, but he would come out and continue taking more pictures, which were reflecting the truth of what we're going through as a country. That showed patriotism towards our country, that showed commitment, and that showed bravery. And I think that is what we need to take away as young people, that we need to continue to be very bold about issues that affect us, that affect our country, and we need to be involved. We must not only be cell phone warriors who sit somewhere in a corner and type and post on social media and call that activism. We need to actually go down to our communities, get our hands dirty. You know, sometimes there are even instances where we can do something to change our situation in our communities without even getting government involved. So in all of those issues as well, we need to be able to go and actually participate as young people and say that in the honor of the lives of Dr. Magubane, who were actually putting their lives on the line to fight for the liberation of this country, us now being in a different context that is more acceptive of voices that are strong against a system, who speak up against issues where we feel that we're not transforming as we should. Then as young people, we need to be able to play a much more greater role and be bold about it and be committed. And most importantly, not do it for clout, but do it for the love of our country, do it for the patriots that we all need to be in honor of Dr. Magubane.
Zama, just allow me to throw in one parting shot, to juxtapose to the points that you're making. Now, we're in an election year, and there's been this whole talk about young people not really interested, they are not registering for voting, and many are saying that they don't see the sacrifices that some of people like Peter Magubane and others have done to the freedom that we have. What would you say to that? And very briefly to the young people that are despondent, that saying that, well, we don't see the point of going to the polls in August or whatever time the president decides the polls will be.
You know, the unfortunate part is that as South Africans, we don't realize that when we don't register to vote, when we don't participate in the elections in itself, then as we complain, and not complain per se, but raise our dissatisfactions about perhaps the pace that service delivery is reaching us, both locally and nationally. But we forget the fact that stats are taken from that in this area, there are these numbers of people who register to vote, who participate in governance. So the more areas participate in governance, the more we know that these are the number of people who are recipients of service delivery, who are part of elections. So we need to go and register to vote. We're not saying that, well, as the ANC and the ANC Youth League obviously would say, go and vote for the ANC. But before we can even get to that, young people need to register to vote because they are parts of this country. They are citizens of this country. Once you are 18 and above, you are now having a responsibility to be part of those who are going to put a government of the day in power. And if you don't participate in that, then you are taking away your rights. Because it's your right as a citizen of this country to vote and to elect a sitting government. And I think it's not enough anymore to just say that I'm dissatisfied with 1, 2, and 3. What else? You are not even part of governance, because it moves beyond even registering to vote and voting. But you remember that at times Parliament would come and say, we are having a session where everyone can have a view towards a particular law that we're going to pass. And young people are not interested in those sittings. Citizens of this country at large are not interested in those sittings, which means that we are not part of governing. We are not giving mandate, and even mandate when it's been given to government, we are still not participating in the day-to-day laws that are being passed, which will guide everything that at the end of the day will be implemented in this country. And I really feel that as young people, we can do better. If we are saying we are woke, then let's prove it by going to register to vote and participating in the elections.
Zama, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for coming through to speak to us as we continue paying tribute to Dr. Peter Magubane.